Peyton Manning wins a second Super Bowl. Now does he ride off into the sunset after this one? Or does he hope to come back and perhaps go one-up on Eli in the future? They're tied 2-2. He says they don't talk about it around the Thanksgiving table. I think that's because they haven't had Thanksgiving together for about 20 years now because of football. But in the future, I imagine they're going to talk about that just a little bit. 737-7767 is our number. Let's go to Jay. Jay, what's going on? You're next up on SportsLine.
Good evening, Steve. First of all, no, it's not rigged.
Thank you.
I just want to congratulate Channel 5 and CBS on the record. That's unbelievable. But I got a question. I'm a Cowboys fan, but I want to congratulate the Broncos and Peyton and all his achievements. But I want to congratulate DeMarcus Ware and Coach Phillips. They've done an outstanding job this year. And I didn't know if you saw Cam Newton's press conference after the game. If I was a Carolina fan, I'd be upset the way he acted. And I'll hang up and listen. Thanks.
First off, I want to hit on Wade Phillips. DeMarcus Ware is great. It's great that he gets that at this point of his career. But Wade Phillips, think about how long that guy has been around the National Football League and how many good defenses and teams he's been a part of. And he finally wins a Super Bowl yesterday. You've got to be thrilled for him. He did a great job with that defense all year, putting his players in positions to let them do what they do best. The guys in the secondary, the Chris Harris and the Aqib Talibs, playing man-to-man coverage. Put them on an island, let them do what they do best. Von Miller, DeMarcus Ware coming off the edge, always getting pressure. He dialed up good game plan after good game plan all season long, and that's a big reason why they were the #1 defense in the league. When it comes to Cam Newton, I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to get to that at some point here tonight. I am a defender of Cam Newton almost all the time. I think he represents a new wave of athletes. And whether we're all completely on board with the dancing, I mean, I'll tell you, if I ever scored a touchdown in the NFL, I'm not dancing because I'd look like an idiot. I get the people who don't like it. They don't like the new era, the new wave, all that stuff. But it is what our culture is. You're talking about 25-year-old guys, younger than that in some cases. They're having fun, and that's how they show it. And I'm okay with that. The two ways you stop it is by stopping Cam Newton or the NFL cracking down on it and starting to penalize these guys for those types of things. I think Cam's smile and his energy and all of that stuff is great for his team and for the NFL. What I also believe about that, though, if you're going to defend his right to be flamboyant, to be Superman, to be the star of the show and in a lot of ways self-promote while he's playing, he's got to be man enough that at the low moments, when they lose the Super Bowl and he's frustrated, that he doesn't shrink, that he doesn't throw on a hoodie, go to the press conference, answer the bare minimum questions with the bare minimum amount of words, and then get up and storm off. That is a bad look. And it's not just a bad look for Cam Newton. That's got to be a frustration for the Carolina Panthers. He took the credit. He took the limelight all year long when things were going well. In the one moment, really, of the season, 17-2 season, that things don't go well, that's how he acts. That, to me, would be frustrating if I'm in that Carolina locker room. I think Cam will be better the next time around because what we've seen is he has sometimes misstepped, but he has often learned from it and become better after that. I expect this will be a learning experience for Cam Newton, but you're right. The way he acted after the game yesterday was not what you expect from a league MVP, a guy who is now a face of the National Football League and someone who took all of the limelight throughout the course of this season. And what a great season it was. That's not diminished by the fact they lost yesterday. Cam Newton's season isn't diminished by the fact they lost yesterday. But his leadership and the way guys look at him in that locker room where they trust him to be the man when he wasn't the man at the most adversarial time of the year, how does that rub on those guys this offseason and into next year? It'll be interesting to wait and see. Let's go to Michael. Michael, good evening. You're next up here on SportsLine. Hello, Michael.
Yes.
Go ahead. You're on the air.
Hey, I like to say that the Denver Broncos showed a great team effort, and the Carolina showed that it was all about Cam. And it started out before the game. If you watched during the national anthem, Cam was arrogant in his posturing of himself, sitting there bobbing his head, not putting his hand over his heart. So that showed his arrogance. And Cam, as a leader, has to step up and show respect for this country and the people who serve this country.
Michael, I appreciate the call. I agree with you in how you should respect the national anthem. I think, and was taught at a young age as a sports player kid, that you put your hand over your heart. You observe the flag. I think that's an important thing that a lot of people should do. But you know what? There are a lot of athletes who don't do it. It's not Cam Newton. It's not just Cam Newton. There are a lot of athletes who do it. And frankly, there were a lot of people in the stands yesterday at Levi's Stadium who weren't doing that either. And so let's not make Cam Newton out to be something that he's not. Cam Newton loves America. I don't think the fact that he was head bobbing, again, I think that's something that's getting psyched up, ready to play. That's what young kids, young guys do. It's part of the culture that, frankly, wasn't part of the culture when I was growing up. And I'm not a whole lot older than some of those guys are. And certainly when you talk different generations, my parents' generation and things like that, it's a different thing, and we're going to have to get used to it. But I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. I think his leadership can be questioned for the way he handled the game afterwards. And I also think your point about the teams is correct. Denver played as a team yesterday. Carolina is a team. They were a team all season long. Cam was the best player on that team. The problem yesterday was no one else on the team showed up. The defense wasn't as good as they've been for much of the year, and offensively, the wide receivers let them down in a big way. The offensive line got steamrolled by Miller and Ware and the rest of that Broncos front, and the running backs weren't great. Stewart got hurt. They put a ball on the turf in the backfield. So then it all went on Cam, and he had to be Superman yesterday, and he wasn't able to do it. Back to the phones, and James. What's up, James? How are you?
Fine. I thought it was a great game and all, but I just think maybe the halftime show was like maybe a little too long in my opinion, and maybe overdone. It seemed like it takes away from the game a little bit. I mean, so that's all I have to say. Yeah. All right, thank you. Bye.
Appreciate the call, James. I don't think you're I don't know if it's the minority or the majority, frankly, because I think there are a lot of people who love the halftime show, and that's part of the reason they watch the game. The Super Bowl is far more, frankly, than just a football game, even though the most important part of it is the football game itself. But I do think there are a lot of people out there who agree with you that think 30 minutes for a halftime Super Bowl show is too long. And it impacts the game. I mean, think about it. During the regular season, halftime in the National Football League is 12 minutes long. You barely get off the field and get to the locker room before you have to turn back around, get back out there, and get warmed up and ready for the second half. You go in at halftime in the Super Bowl, and the Super Bowl halftime is 2.5 times longer than anything you deal with during the course of the regular season or playoffs. That is an impact, I believe. And sometimes it's used to teams' advantage in the way they make adjustments or come out in the second half. But you better believe that is an impact on the game. But when you're talking about the NFL and the show that is the Super Bowl, what do you change? I mean, we are used to our Super Bowls with God Bless America beforehand and the national anthem with Lady Gaga, who, by the way, killed it yesterday with the national anthem, and flyovers and everything that comes with the pageantry of before the game. And part of it too is the halftime show. Part of it is bringing Beyonce and Bruno and Coldplay, I guess, but getting all of them on the stage and celebrating the country and the music and everything that goes with it. And I agree it's probably not best for the football product, but that's part of the way you get 200 million people, or whatever the number overall is, to watch from around the globe, is it's not just for the football, it's for everything that plays into what the Super Bowl actually is. Let's go to Chip. Chip, good evening. You're on SportsLine.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I was fine until about 10 minutes ago.
Okay. Fire away.
I was dialing the number when you stole my thunder.
Okay. So you're mad at me because I share your same opinion, huh?
Yep.
Well, and what's that on?
I think the most redeemed man in the NFL is Wade Phillips.
I agree.
And who hired him?
I assume it was Gary Kubiak, but John Elway had a lot to do with it for sure.
Which tells you where
Chip, I like your point, but we're losing you. Actually, we just lost you without me doing anything. So if you're on a cell phone or something, give us a call back, Chip, because I think you're on to something good there. Look, Wade Phillips is a really good football coach, and I think anybody around the National Football League will tell you that about Wade Phillips. He's been great. He's been well respected. He's a really good defensive coordinator. He's had opportunities as a head coach. He's done a lot of good things, but he's never gotten to that stage. And I think you just have to be really happy for him, the way this defense, the way this team was built, and the way it panned out yesterday. And also, John Elway, I don't know if you're getting there with part of that, but John Elway, as the general manager of the Broncos, I mean, obviously attracted Peyton Manning. That helped kind of spearhead this run. But 2 years ago, the Broncos had the best offense in the NFL, maybe one of the best offenses we've ever seen in the NFL with Peyton Manning at the helm. They were record-setting and just putting a beat down on everybody. And they get into that Super Bowl in New York against a Seahawks defense that was number one in the league. And the Seahawks put a smackdown on them. They just completely pummeled them in that game. And I think John Elway learned in that game that as good as the offense is, defense ultimately wins championships. And in the NFL, that's certainly the case now. I've seen a few different stats today. I think the Super Bowl record now for a team with a number one rated defense is 9-2 in Super Bowls. If you go all the way back and include some of the NFL championships before that, I think it's like 12-4 or 13-4 or something. The point is, if you go into the Super Bowl with the best defense in the league, you're probably going to win, because that is a dominant force that you've had. And John Elway learned that 2 years ago. And so he recreated this Broncos team. Peyton Manning still on the offensive side of the ball. As he said yesterday, our offense was never going to be chopped liver, but we needed a better defense. He created the better defense. And that defense is what won the Broncos. What won Peyton Manning and John Elway another Super Bowl is because they were dominant. And yesterday, they were the force that completely shut down the NFL's best offense in Cam Newton, the MVP, and the Carolina Panthers. More phone calls coming up. 737-7767 is the number. Stay tuned. We're back with more of you right after this.